Hi, I'm Linda Kay. I'm with Hanover Township Senior Center in Bartlett, Illinois, and today we are going to create cereal box organizers from things that you have around the house already. And that's a theme I like to do with a lot of my videos so that you don't need to go out and buy a lot of supplies. You probably have them already around the house. So what I mean by cereal box organizers are boxes that you have that instead of putting them in the garbage or recycling them, you can make them into really nice coordinated organizers for your home. We're going to be doing covered boxes with wrapping paper and other supplies, and this is what I mean by an organizer. It is lined and completely covered, and all of this came from things around the house. Cereal boxes, cracker boxes, toilet paper and paper towel rolls, things that you buy products in all the time and then can cover them up with coordinating colors of papers and some tacky glue and some time and patience, and make a really nice organizer for your desk, your crafting area, or somewhere in your home that you need to tidy up and decorate and organize in a nice way. And I think they turned out really nicely for just having scraps and stuff that I had around the house. So what I want to do is go over the materials list, the supplies you will need, and show you what you want to gather, and then you can get started. So first of all, you'll want to download the PDF instruction file for cereal box organizers off of our website. It is www.hanover-township.org. I'm going to close so you can see it. And this will be on our website for a bit, and download it, print it out, or just download it to your tablet or your laptop so you have it for reference, and it has all the instructions you will need in order to create these organizer box, and a lot of helpful tips that I put in here for you. And I wish you good luck, and let me know if you have any questions or concerns. You can contact me through the township, and on the top is my contact information here too. So let's get started. So what you will want to gather are some rulers, and I used a longer one and a shorter one just because sometimes you need both. Some good sharp scissors, a pencil with an eraser, a Sharpie marker so I can see the lines that I'm cutting. I have another ruler. I've got a soft ruler so I can measure the circumference of the tubes. You will want some tacky glue, some masking tape, and I'll show you what that's for in a bit. I also use this painter's tape for temporarily taping down my pieces of paper so they don't roll and curl up when I'm trying to work with them. Another good thing to have are some rubber bands, some clothespins, some paper clips. When you're gluing the boxes together, you need a way to keep them held together until the glue dries. And an optional item which comes in really handy is one of these razor cutters, a retractable kind, so that you can cut things like the foam core board or the edges of a box or the tube. You'll want some kind of larger wrapping paper. This was one I found in our art closet, and it's got a texture to it. It's a little heavier than just gift wrap paper, but it is still a gift wrap paper, and that will work fine. I also found some really pretty wallpaper that was donated to the center, and I like this one because it's stiff. It's got a nice feel to it. Both of these papers have a finish to them, which is kind of a glazed, shiny look to it. Just feels nice. You'll also want to use some scrapbook paper, and these are 8.5 by 11 sheets, and I really like the 12 by 12 sheets, especially if they're double coated, printed on both sides. Gives you more options to play around with. And then a couple of items you might want to have on hand is we use these messy mats here at the art center, and to keep the mess and the glue off of the table. If you don't have any of that, then you might want to use a piece of paper, a newspaper, or some wax paper on taped down to your tabletop, or a plastic tablecloth. I keep a couple of damp paper towels handy for messy fingers because you're going to be gluing. And one of the tricks I like to do when I'm using tacky glue is that I create a tray to put them in. So I've got this meat tray that I got from the grocery store. I washed it up with soap and water really well. Then I'm using this packing tape roll, or if you don't have that, you can use something round like another container, like cottage cheese container or something like that. And then I like to store my tacky glue upside down, because if you store it this way, you're going to be waiting long periods of time for that glue to flow down to the tip where you need it, and it takes a while for it to come out. So I just store it with the top off right in there, and I'm ready to glue at any moment because the glue flows down and I don't have to go all over hunting and shaking it out and wasting time or getting frustrated. So the other important thing you want to have are boxes. Now these boxes are made out of something called chipboard. It's pretty typical. It's gray on the inside, and then they print stuff on the outside, and it contains all kinds of things. And this one happens to be a cake box. And I have taken some scissors and cut all the top flap edges off, so I can start with the basic box shape here and work around playing with different designs and different configurations. Now I want to talk about that for a little bit. I wanted to have a way to see my items that I'm storing easily, so I beveled all my edges and I matched them up so that they all fit together nicely. The way I started this was with the very tallest box, and I knew that this was the highest point I wanted, and then I angled them down to meet each other. So this box was slightly smaller, and I angled this edge together to make a nice flow here, and then I just echoed it in this box. So there's 1, 2, 3 boxes here, and 1, 2, 3 toilet paper tubes. So I also did the same thing. I lined them up next to the box. I copied the angle, and then I cut them out to match. It takes a bit of playing around, but it's possible to do it. This was a paper towel tube too, but you can use the toilet paper tubes as well. I used my imagination, and I also went onto Pinterest and onto Google, and I Googled cardboard box organizers and DIY cardboard box organizers to find ideas for how I wanted to arrange my boxes. And you also need to think about, well, what are you going to store in here? Are you going to put papers? Are you going to put pencils? Here I can put things like this in it, my pencil, my markers, and any other little items I have, like small pieces of paper. Well, I don't have those handy right now, but you get the idea. So here, it's a nice organizer this way. So then everything's neat and tidy. I know where it is, and it's also decorative. I think they came out pretty well. So use your imagination and play around with getting the configuration you want first, and then we will, I'll show you how step by step to take a box from this and turn it into something like this. There's one more thing I forgot to mention that you will want to have on hand. Is some cardboard from a box, shipping box, or if you have some foam core board. These will be covered with your wrapping paper and used for the base of your organizer, and it will end up looking like this. This one is already cut and wrapped nicely. I've glued it down and then taped down the edges here on the back side. So this will be the base of my organizer that I'm going to show right now, and pretty easy. Wrap it like a gift, like a box or something, like a book or something. And I have glued it down first, and then I also added this masking tape here for a little extra security, just so I know it won't come unloose, especially while it's drying. So that's another thing, cardboard or foam core for your base. So the way I came about doing this is I've chosen to use these boxes here, and I've already covered and lined them and glued them together because I know I'm going to put these together. So I wanted to show you how I created this box that goes on the back. And I first I've cut off all the top edges with scissors, so I have something to work with. And some of these are a little bit flexible and flimsy, so even to tighten it up a little bit, I took this masking tape here and put a piece along the bottom edge of it to give it a nice firm fitting, and it does strengthen it quite a bit. Also, when you're working with these, you might think this may not be strong enough, but actually it is. Once you glue the paper around the outside and inside, and then you glue the boxes together and they dry overnight, it becomes much more sturdy. And then placing it on a base will further strengthen it too, so it will all become one unit, and you won't have to worry about it too much. It'll be a nice firm organizer for you. So I'm going to set this aside for now. I gotta pull that back. So to make this fit and follow this form, I've got this line, angled line going this way. I matched up the boxes side by side, and I drew in this one line here for the top edge of this box to match up with the back edge of this box. So I just drew it in with my marker, and I used a ruler to get a nice straight edge because I want it to look good. And then I took this edge, and I know so this side will be shorter, the back edge will be taller, so I had to create this beveled angle here, and all I did was mark this line here and the top of the box and took a ruler and matched them up and drew in a line, as you can see there. And then I will just cut it out with scissors, and we'll go from there. So scissors work pretty well. If you need if you've got something harder than this kind of chipboard box, you may want to use this kind of cutter, the one with the razor blade in it, and that works nice. So one trick I learned is to first cut down to the cutting line that you've marked with scissors in the corner here, and then go ahead and cut it, and it makes it really easy. So I do the little edges here first. Pull that away, and then I can get in here and do the cutting along this edge. And if my scissors don't go all the way across, I can turn the box around and come from the other side like this. Pretty easy. So I get it as smooth and as accurate as I can. The wrapping paper will hide a lot of the jagged edges, if any, so I wouldn't get too uptight, but I do try to keep it as neat as possible. So then I will take my wrapping paper, and this is the wallpaper that I told you about. So when you're laying out your pattern for the wrapping paper, you want to make sure that the pattern is facing the right side up towards the top of the box, and I've done that here on this piece. I've already cut it out. I've already measured out because it does take a bit of time, and I wanted to show you how to tape it down because paper tends to get curly, and I use this blue painter's tape to keep it put down in place so that I don't have to fight it so much and weigh it down with weights or anything. So what I've done is I've measured the box height, the highest point, and I've added an inch to the top portion and an inch to the bottom portion, and I've also added, let's see, at least an inch for the circumference. That means all the way around, so that when I wrap the box it overlaps a bit and there will be a seam. So I want to make sure that it's completely covered, and so I've measured that out and I've translated those lines here. So this box was about 7 1/4 inches high, so I want to have about 9 1/4 inches tall on this area, and then the circumference was 6 and 6 is 12, plus 1.5 inches plus 3 is 9. I think I went much more than I needed on this one. 12 and 3 it's 15. So there we go. That's why I have a longer ruler too. 15.5, so I've got more than enough to cover this box. So I will then find the center point, and I mark it on my paper here with pencil, and then I will measure equidistance from the center so that I've got the shape, the size of the box I need. So I'm going to want my overlapping seam to not show on my box when I have it finished. So here's the overlapping seam. I don't know if you can see it well or not, but there it is. And on the front, I didn't want an overlapping seam. So I will make sure that I hide that somewhere. So on this one, I'm going to have it on this edge, the shorter edge, because the shorter edge is going to be hidden with the box in front of it. So I will make sure that I lay this down where I want the seam. Wait, no, this way. This way. So the seam will come around and wrap here. So then I'm going to trace around the box, the back side of the box, in the middle of my paper, so that when I go to glue it all down, I know exactly where it's going to go. And then I'll be able to start wrapping it. So the way I do it is I take my tacky glue after I've drawn in my lines, and I get pretty generous with it. And yes, this is wallpaper, but I don't know how old it is or how good the wallpaper paste is on it, so I'm going to use tacky glue. And then I've got all these ridges, and I want to smooth them out with my fingertip, and that is why I like to have the paper towel right near me so that I can keep my fingers as clean as possible. And I'm going to smooth it out, use my paper towel, and then I'm going to go ahead and lay this down. So I match up the lines that I drew in here around, that I traced the box around. And I'm going to go inside the box and press it down the best that I can and smooth it out. So then I will untape just one side of the paper, not both, just one side. You see it does curl up pretty easily. And now I'm going to smooth it as best that I can. I put one hand inside the box and one on the outside and smooth it down. And you might have to do this a couple of times because the glue absorbs into the paper, and the paper does move a little bit and buckle sometimes. You want to get it nice and smooth. You don't want wrinkles. You don't want little warped edges. So that's why I take my time and really smooth it down so that it has a nice appearance. And then I want nice crisp lines here on the edges, so when I go to wrap the edges, it will make a nice crisp looking box. I like to have a good finish, so I take my time when I do things like this. I don't rush it. So that's glued down. Now I can glue this side edge here. And I'm just going to put the glue on the box. Same thing, smooth it out with your finger. If you want to use a paintbrush, that's fine. I would suggest you get it damp first and keep it damp, otherwise the glue will glue your brush closed. So here I'm going to do this side, and I'm making sure that it's got a nice crisp folded edge on the bottom here. My hand is inside to support the box, and I've got two done, and I'm going to untape this second side here on your right and glue these too. See how nice it is to have the glue ready all the time? That's why I put it in that little configuration, so that I know that I have glue handy all the time. This side goes up. Nice crisp edge. Now I'm going to overlap. So I just go ahead and start gluing one edge, one side of it. Hand inside again. And smooth it down. More glue. So this is done. So now I'm just going to let it sit a minute and then I'll rub it all over again just to make sure it's glued down. So once that's all in place and I'm happy with it, then I'm going to wrap the edges. So the bottom of the box that was taped with the masking tape, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut the edges here and glue it like it was a package you would wrap for the holidays or a birthday present. So I'll put the ends in first and glue them down. I'll do the seam edge next, and then I'll glue this last flap in. I may have to trim these edges here a little bit to get a nice looking seal. So I'm going to do that off camera, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how I do the rest of the box. All right, I've glued the bottom and I've gone back and re-smoothed out all the sides of the box, and then I have taken and trimmed away the extra pieces of paper that were in my way. So I wanted to match the angle of the box that I had cut, so I had trimmed off this edge and this edge here, so that when I fold it inside the box, it's nice and neat and it's not too much. So I'm going to go ahead and glue all the inside of these edges, and it's just a matter of putting the glue down, smoothing it out with my finger, and then folding it in. Now I want to follow the line here, so I make a little bit of crease first, and then I'm going to tuck it inside, glue it in, and rub it down with my fingers so it seals inside really nicely. I'll do that to all of them pretty quickly. If there's any overlap, like on the pointed corners here, this will overlap on this back side here, then I just push it down and then make a little crease here on the inside to give it a nicer finish. And I push it from the top down. Now I like to have a little bit of the paper glued to the inside edge so that when I make the liner, it has a nice finish to it. So that's what I'm doing, making this nice finished inside seam there. And it goes pretty quickly. I just want to make sure everything has enough glue so it will stay, and then it's pushed into place and pressed down properly. Again, with the damp paper towel, keep your fingers clean. So I'm just pushing it all down, and I will let that dry. And the next thing I'll show you how to do is the liner. Now the liner, I picked this pretty purple paper. Kind of coordinates with the other set I showed you in the beginning. I ran out of the pink, so I chose this setup, and I think it'll coordinate well on my desk for my organizing my supplies. So what I will do is, again, I have already measured out and traced around the box so I get the inside covered nicely. So this is, I just simply lay it along, and I'll use the edge of the pieces of paper for one of my things, and I'll do the biggest side first, and I will trace around the box with my pencil. Then I'll flip it over and do the other side of the box, the next biggest piece, trace around that. And then I will trace around the edges, the left and the right edges. Same way. That side, and then this side. You can see how that is done. So I will take some time and cut it out, and I'll be right back. All right, so I've cut out all of my papers for the inside lining, and I have done what's called a dry fit, where I take the paper and put it in the box to make sure it fits properly and that there's no buckles. And I have noticed that the inside of the box is slightly smaller than the outside, so I have to trim away some of the edges on these papers. So I've already done it on these three. I've trimmed away the excess here, and I want to trim this one. So you're going to be cutting 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch off most of the sides. So you just take your scissors and do thin little 1/8 of an inch long cuts on the left and the right sides. This, especially if you have a design that is centered or has a pattern you want it to match up nice. So this will fit in here nicely now, but I also know that it's going to be a little bit too long because remember I want this nice edge that I took the time to glue inside. I want that to show. So I'm going to trim that one too, but I like to trim this one a little less than 1/4 inch along the bottom only. So that I've got this nice straight edge up here. So I'm going to do a dry fit and see how that makes a nice edge right there. So now I can put the rest in and do a dry fit with them as well. And I've already tested it out so I know it works. Magic of video. And so I will get a nice finish. So I know this will work. And you can trim away any excess that you need to, and then you will remove them again. So I'm going to take these back out, and then I will glue each one in with my tacky glue, the same I did with the outside paper. I want to make sure I get a good seal and nice and smooth. I go around the edges first and then just kind of dribble some in and smooth it out with my fingers. I like this tacky glue because it gives me a little bit of working time. It doesn't dry instantly, but it dries nice and smooth once it's done and gives me a nice finish. So now I can take this, put it inside the box, find the bottom edge first, my hand inside and glue it down and smooth it really nicely. And then it gives me time to move it around a little bit too. And then I'll just smooth it all down with my hand. So you get a nice finished look to it. And I think it's important to take the time to finish things nicely on the inside and the outside, the back and the bottom, not just the front that everybody looks at first, but all around. So now that's glued in nicely, and I'll do that to all four, and then we'll go to the next step. Okay, now I have this box all wrapped and lined. It's drying. It's all smoothed down. I'm very happy with it. I like the way it looks, and it matches the other ones I've done besides earlier where you didn't see. So I want to show you how I created a tube to go with this box set, because I want to have a tube to put long things in it, like paintbrushes or rulers and long pencils, things like that. So this will fit in front of, behind here. And I think what I want to do is angle it so this edge is even and put the tube that I want to use here. So I've already measured how big I want this tube to be. I want it to match these sides, this side, this angle here. So I took, and with a pencil or marker, I marked where the low spot is, which is here, and the high spot, which is here. And then I just used the marker to trace all the way around and to join this high point and this low point. And then I will cut it out with scissors. And if that is too hard to cut with scissors, you can use the razor blade. But I found just poking a hole in the tube with your scissors to start it, and then working your way around your line is just as effective and probably a little safer. Get you a nicer edge. So here it comes to an edge I have a hard time cutting, so I'm just going to turn it and go in the opposite direction here like this. I cut away that mark as much as possible because I don't want it leaking through or showing through the the wrapping paper. So that's how I cut this tube to match this set. And another thing I want to show you what you need to do is you're going to need to create the base for this that you're going to glue it all down on. So I took a piece of foam core and I used a large sheet and I laid my boxes on top of them. And I want a nice sturdy base so it doesn't tip over once it gets full of supplies. And then I have another tube that I've already covered that I'll show you how to finish that off in a bit. But I wanted to show you about the base as well. So I've got them dry fitted again together, and this is how big I want it. So I have a nice sturdy base. So I measured out with my ruler how wide I need it, how deep I need it, and I cut it out with the razor blade and wrapped that with the wrapping paper that I've chosen, and I showed you earlier that I taped the back side of it as well to make it nice and strong and sturdy. So I'm going to set this aside. We're going to glue all of these on together in just a bit, and I wanted to show you that how to finish off the tube as well. So the tube I measured, and it's about 6 inches in circumference. This one is about 5.5, so you're going to need to add at least an inch, inch and a quarter or so. And to make things easy, because it was just over 5.5 inches in circumference, I'm going to go measure 7 inches wide, and then the length, and you want the highest length plus an inch on either side. So the highest length on this one is 7. So I will cut a piece of paper that is 9 by 7. And that's what I did here. So I took it and put glue all over the paper, not the roll, and I glued it down onto the paper with a 1/2 inch overlap here, like that, and made sure it was nice and smooth. So the way I get this edges inside wrapped, because I want to have a nice finished edge just like I did on this set. See how on the inside it's nice and smooth there, like we did with the boxes? You can do that for the tubes as well. So I just took scissors and cut to the tube and made 1/2 inch slits. So I'm going to glue the inside of this paper and glue them all inside like I did with the boxes, and make sure that they're really nice and smooth. And also for the top edge, which is angled, remember I beveled it to match, so this will also get all glued in there nice and neat with the glue, and I will come back and show you how to do the lining. So I want to line the inside of my tube to match, and I already cut a piece of paper. So we talked about the circumference being a little more than 5.5 inches. So remember, the inside circumference is going to be slightly smaller. So I went ahead and cut this piece by 6 inches wide, and then taller than the tube is. So this tube was about 7 inches high, and I had extra, and rather than sit and trim it exactly, I left it a little bit long, and you'll see why in just a moment. So what I'm going to do is, if this had a design on it like this purple paper that I had for the liner in this one, I ran out of this one, so I found something that coordinated. So you would want to roll the decorative part of it on the inside. So I'm just going to roll it gently. So I don't want it to crease. And I'm going to simply fit it inside. So I want the overlapping seam to be in the front of the tube. So that's where I'm going to put it. And I'll push it all the way in, and I have to be careful I don't catch the edges of the paper I just glued. So you just gently put it in there. You might have to tighten the curl a little bit, the roll. And I've got the edge on the bottom even with my bottom edge of my tube. I'm just going to roll it around so it gets in there nice and snugly. And the edges are even. A little tricky because I want these edges even, and I want these edges even. So I have to just twist it a little bit. So there we go. So now I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to mark the edge where the tube meets the liner paper all the way around. All right, like that. Then I'm going to pull it out just a little bit so I can cut away this excess with my scissors. And I'm going to cut slight, like a, not quite a 1/4 inch, but maybe, what do you call it, 3/8 of an inch. Anyway, slightly smaller, so I've got that nice edge that matches the box. It's ripping just a little bit. You just be gentle. Cut it away and match those edges here. Come around the other side and get that one. Smooth it out. Now I can put it into place. And I've got that little lip that I like so much. Here, to turn it a little bit. And then I'm going to glue it down. I'm going to tuck the tacky glue inside here, squeeze some in a few places on the top and a few places on the bottom, and secure it really well so that it is glued into place. And then we'll put the boxes together. Okay, I am ready to assemble my organizer onto the base. I've got everything wrapped, lined, and I think I'm happy with it. So, as you've noticed, these have already been glued together for speed for the video. And the way I do this is to decide where I want these boxes to be, and I had actually started it like this configuration, and I decided I'm going to put it over here. It fits together better. And this one will go here, and then I cut another tube to fit in this space, and I will need to cover it and line it and then glue it into place as well. But I'll do that later off camera. And then the way I want to do this is make sure that there's equal distance between the sides and the front. I don't want it to flip over because it's heavy, and I want it to look right. So it will go right about there. So because I've already glued these two boxes together, I'm going to take my pencil, and on the inside I'm going to line the edges where these boxes are meeting, because I don't want the line to show on the outside edge. So I've got that marked there, so I can take the box off, and I'm going to put tacky glue, and quite a bit of it. And I want to make sure I get these edges along here. I want ample glue along there, and then some on the inside. And for this, I'm not worrying too much about smoothing it down. I want lots of glue so that it fills in the cracks and it seals well. So I'm finding my lines and lining up the edges with them, and I'm going to push down firmly, but I don't want to crumple any of the top edges, so I just want to make sure. Rock it a little bit front and forward and side to side. And if a little glue comes out the edges like it is there, it's all right. We can take our damp paper towel and clean up the edges that show right along there. And we're going to let that sit a little bit. So now I want to put this last box in that I showed you. So I'm going to turn it so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to put glue along this edge of the box and the bottom edge of the back box. Again, lots of glue. I want you to see that. That edge and the bottom edge of this box. See how I've done that? And I'm going to fit them together. I'm going to push down, and then I also need to push these two edges together. So I put my hand in there and squish them together. And this is where the clips come in handy. So I really like these simple little clothespins, and just tuck them in there so that it holds them together. And another thing you could use are rubber bands. Hold the boxes together nice and tight. So here I've got edges of glue to clean up here, and here, damp paper towel. So there's that. And because I'm going to put some tubes in front on this side, I'm not going to worry too much about the glue because it's going to get more glue on that. And then just rock it and push it down firmly without creating a bent edge on this top area here. So to glue these, I want to see where it's going to touch. So I know it's going to touch along the back of this edge and the side of this edge. So in this case, I'm going to glue the tube along here pretty well. Nice healthy dose of glue, and along this edge, and also this bottom edge. Like that. Okay? And I'm just going to tuck them in. I'm going to move the rubber band out of the way. And stick it in there. Firm push. Now the rubber band should hold it in place, but I'm also going to wipe the glue off there and along this edge where it shows. And paper clothespins on the edge that touch. Push it in at the bottom, down and towards the bottom. And then the second tube, after I get that wrapped, I'll also glue that in front of here. And these are going to need a good 24 hours to dry completely before you start loading them up with supplies. And you'll want to remove the clothespins and the rubber bands, of course. And then you will have a really nice organizer made out of things that you have around the house. And it doesn't cost a lot of money, and it just takes time and patience and a little bit of creativity. I think it's a good thing to do is to recycle your items that you have instead of just throwing everything out. Find a new purpose for them. And I'm very pleased how this turned out. And I'm going to be using this on my desk at work here, as well as this one. And I'm quite pleased. Quite pleased, and I hope you enjoy it too. Again, all the instructions are on our website. You can download the PDF, and I have step-by-step instructions for all of it. And let me find the front. There you go. And then on the last page, I have some ideas for you that I pulled off of Pinterest and to get you inspired. I hope you create something and enjoy this process. And I would love to hear from you. Please contact me at hanovertownship.org. I have email and our main phone number listed on the front page of the document, of the instruction document. And good luck and happy crafting.